Hello, everybody. Welcome back to the Prospero.ai stock market live streams. I see JC is here in the chat nice and early saying happy Monday. Happy Monday to you. I hope everybody had a great weekend. We are seeing the markets open up here today in the red, although they are fighting back here, trying to go into the green. We're seeing some of them have some upward momentum at the moment as we're starting the stream here. The VIX was up quite a bit this morning, approaching 17 level. It's selling off now early on throughout the trading day here, but we're seeing a lot of uncertainties, a lot of volatility hitting the market, some headlines over the weekend. So we will be getting into all of it on the stream today. Before I go through the topics, everybody smash that like button if you're watching on YouTube or X, subscribe, follow. So glad you guys love these live streams and are back joining me here today. But I will take you all through the topics now as we begin, starting with the Jerome Powell headline. So came out and he made a video that he is under investigation. So this can't be a good thing for the market, just adding some more uncertainty to the mix. And yeah, it was an interesting weekend for him for sure. Nick is in the chat. Nick, just the man I wanted to see. I want to ask you a question. So if you guys hadn't heard on our last stream, we have a new channel on our Discord for live stream topics. And Nick, I saw you shared Reddit earnings, but I have a different date. I have them for February. Google does say next month. Let me know if you find an exact answer. We'll either bring it up today or wait until the earnings are closer. But we are getting into earnings this week. We have some banking earnings, so we got some stuff later on. Another story and financial stock I want to get into is Hood. Now that Robinhood had a tremendous 2025, they've kind of been trading sideways for a bit here. About 6 months now of basically sideways chop since about July 2025. They're at similar levels now and making lower highs since October. So, is Robinhood's best growth days behind it? You know, even the largest financial institutions in the world trade at like, hundreds of billions of market cap. JP Morgan, the behemoth of them all, approaching a trillion, but most of the other ones are between like, 300 billion to 600 billion. Robinhood, not so far behind it, has all of the growth, or at least a lot of the growth, been priced in. And is that kind of hurting the shares now that they're going to have to deliver on this tremendous growth going forward? Another financial topic today, a lot of finance stuff going on. Makes sense with finance earnings later this week. We have headlines coming out about how Donald Trump wants to put a cap on credit card rates of 10%, which sent Capital One actually reacting a lot. It was down as much as 10% this morning. Let's see where Capital One is now. If they're still reacting as much, or if there's buy the dipping going on. So they are down 7% right now. And so a little bit of a buy the dip there, but this would be a major drag on their business for sure if credit card rates were to have a set cap. I'm going to ask George how it will affect the entire financial landscape. Yeah, interesting story coming out of seemingly nowhere. Nick has an answer on Reddit for us. Must be February. Last was October 30th. Haven't announced a scheduled earnings call. Reddit Investors Relations page. All right, no worries. Well, it was a good call out for our new live stream topic room in Discord. If you aren't a member of our Discord, you can join using the link in the description of these live streams on YouTube. So if you're watching on Twitter, head on over to YouTube. You go in the description, go right into our Discord. And yeah, we're going to have a lot of earnings coming up over the next month. So I'm sure we're going to get into a lot of different earnings topics on the streams over the next couple of weeks. One today that actually pre-announced their earnings was Tempest AI. I want to ask George if pre-announcing earnings is actually a good strategy for a company. Typically, it seems like when companies do this, they have either very bullish or very bearish earnings. Dividend Degenerates is in the chat saying, good morning, what's up? Good morning, Dividend Degenerates. Good to see you here back today. Tempest was on the bullish side of things, so their stock is reacting positively today. They beat their estimates and also reported some really good data within their company, so we'll get into all of that. Tempest is one that goes around on the social media circles quite a bit, and I'm not sure if their stock has I guess they have done pretty well over the past year, actually very well over the past year. Wow. up 100%. So I was going to say maybe they haven't delivered quite as much, but yeah, they have had quite a bit of growth in the share price. So we'll highlight Temp today, and use case of AI in the medical field. Nick, you have a different one than Reddit now? Okay, I want to know about Netflix, which is coming up next week, and the stock is looking a little beat up since the stock split. All right, I'll bring up Netflix for you. Let me make a note for Netflix stock. I saw there's some back and forth on whether Netflix is going to be allowed to buy Warner Bros. It looks like it's being a little bit challenged, so I wonder if that's weighing on the share price. Netflix earnings next week, you said? Choppy trading lately? All right. We'll bring up Netflix for you as well later on. Another topic I have for you all today is gold, which has continued soaring higher and higher and higher and higher. So it's now trading at about a $32 trillion market cap. And if you add up the next 10 biggest market caps, which I actually have over here, it would be silver, Nvidia, Alphabet, Apple, Microsoft, Amazon, Bitcoin, and TSMC. Um, they don't even equal gold. So I'm going to ask George, does it make sense to him that gold would trade at such a massive market cap valuation? When you think of all of the like value that those other companies and even Bitcoin provide to like the world, the business world, and then gold is so far ahead of them, it's staggering, and it just continues to go higher. I think it was up 2% again today, and it seems like there's no stopping in sight. I'm also wondering now, is gold, since I was talking about the uncertainty in the beginning of the stream, like is gold just trading off the uncertainty that continues to grow, it seems like, in the stock market and business world? Yeah, gold is already up 6% year to date and 72% in the past year and making new all-time highs. We've been covering gold and silver. And in our newsletter, if you guys are investing newsletter subscribers, you saw we talked about crypto a lot in this past newsletter. Wonder if George has any thoughts on if people are going to begin rotating from the metals into crypto, or if crypto is just going to catch up, or just why has gold and those performed just so well, and crypto is not, even though we're starting to get bullish on it from the newsletter. Okay, two more topics to go through. We have Apple leading the smartphone market yet again. So I have the top three and the global share percentage for each to share with you all. It seems like Apple just keeps on trucking along, finding a way. A little bit more of a boring stock, it seems like at this point, not really innovating in the way that they once were. But as long as they maintain that stranglehold on the smartphone market, seems like they got a decent thing going on. And I do want to ask George, I feel like a lot of people are super bullish on Tesla because of the fleet of cars that they already have sold and their ability to make software updates and get the FSD in all of these pre-existing sold vehicles. I'm wondering if any kind of AI feature like can be beneficial like that for Apple's iPhones that they've already sold, and if that's kind of why the stock has stayed up so sturdy, even though it's not really producing crazy numbers. All right, last but not least, another social media stock I see a lot of people talking about it is Grab, which is kind of like the Uber of Southeast Asia. It's a little bit more though. It's kind of like an everything app too. So it's a little bit of like an Uber WeChat mix kind of company. But they operate all over in Cambodia, Indonesia, Malaysia, Myanmar, Philippines, Singapore, Thailand, Vietnam, and it's trading at about roughly 1/10 the market cap of Uber at the moment. Now, George has never really liked Uber when we've talked about them on the streams and their business practices per se, but with Grab being 1/10 the value and also not being just Uber's business, they kind of have a more well-rounded business, it seems like. Will he like them? And are they an interesting play that since they're such a smaller company at this point? Mario's in the stream. What's up, Mario? Morning all. Gold rise equals Venezuela, Greenland, whoever's next. You could be right, Mario, for sure. That's all the uncertainty stuff that's going on, right? So it seems like with every headline that comes out where people just don't know what's going to happen next, yeah, it just floods all the money right into gold. I think you're probably right there. All right, everybody. As always, if you have any questions throughout the stream today, any stocks you want to see covered, feel free to mention them. Oh, Nick's in the chat. I literally see Grab everywhere in Thailand and have been personally using it a ton. Ooh, so you got to invest in what you use, right? Interesting. So, Nick, so you have a firsthand experience with Grab. Um, you do see it being used everywhere in Thailand. So is it, because I'm not so certain, is it, have you seen the features? Like I saw it called an everything app, but have you seen that personally where like they offer services and features like well beyond Uber in terms of like you can do anything using them? I'd be curious to know. But I will get into the SPY and QQQ net options sentiment here as we begin the stream. I saw in the Discord someone mentioned that SPY was off the zero mark, so we'll see if that remains to be the case at the start of the stream here. We currently have a split in the market, so the Russell and the SPY are just barely in the green. QQQ and Dow in the red right now. Pretty low movement in the overall indices. We've seen this a lot throughout the year of just stocks, individual stocks making big moves, but the indices just kind of in a malaise. So interesting start to the year in that regard. I'm sure with earnings, we could probably see a pickup in the movement we're seeing. All right, I have QQQ and SPY pulled up in Prospero. Currently seeing a 20 for net option sentiment for QQQ and a 0 for SPY. So SPY is back down at the 0 flat line. It did. Oh yeah, I am seeing the one pop up this morning at 9:40 a.m. But yeah, back down at 0. So not looking great for the SPY. And I was also thinking about our gold topic of Mario, how you're mentioning like all of the headlines going around. I think the SPY and the QQQ net option sentiment are probably a good indication of the uncertainty where people are investing in individual companies, but also hedging the portfolios, like George has mentioned before, with the SPY and QQQ. So I guess as long as you're seeing gold rallying and uncertainty rising, I think the QQQ and SPY net option sentiment will probably remain low, which makes sense with everything that's going on. All right, let's see. Nick has an answer for us about Grab. Yes, you can do anything that requires transportation. You can even book rides for other people and just select to have the rider pay in person. Very interesting. Very interesting. I see a lot of positive coverage of that name all over social media. And let's check in on the stock, actually. How has it been able to perform? So I'm checking the ticker GRAB for people just joining. Year to date, down 4%. The past year, up 11%. Past 5 years, down 64%. They look like one of those companies that IPO'd right at like the max momentum of 2021 and maybe got caught up in the bear market that ensued after that 2021, 2022. Yeah, down quite a bit and have never hit those high levels again. So maybe it's a good time to buy the dip. We will ask George. All right, we can take a look around the markets. Is Discord IPO announcement a topic? Just remembered that. Is Discord IPOing soon? I didn't see that. Let's check. All right, I see Discord reportedly files IPO signaling shift ahead. Interesting. We could get into that too, Nick, later on for sure. Hello, George. Welcome to the stream today. I will jot that down with the Netflix. No date announced, but I believe they announced a 2026 IPO. Interesting. Yeah, we'll chat about that later for sure. We'll get into the Discord possible IPO. All right, George. So we're seeing a split market as we're beginning the stream here today. And another like interesting day where you're seeing big moves in individual stocks and you're seeing the VIX move a lot, up 5% right now. But the overall markets right now, QQQ up 0.06, same with SPY, Russell up 0.02, Dow Jones down 0.17. So literally like almost no index level movement. Pretty typical from what we've seen to the start of 2026 here, where the indices don't move too much, but individual stocks are moving big on the daily. We saw a very wild headline over the weekend and a response from Jerome Powell in video probably adding to uncertainties in the market. We checked in on SPY and QQQ NOS to begin the stream here. SPY is at 0, although it did pop up to 1 this morning, but back down to 0. QQQ is at 20, so not great levels in either of those. Probably to be expected with all of the uncertainty and drama going on. What are your thoughts on the market as Prospero has gotten off to quite a good start, though, amidst all this volatility, uncertainty to start 2026?
Yeah, it's one of those things where it's like, I feel like we took some heat at the end of last year for some of our picks, but sometimes it just, when you have like high growth names, sometimes all you can do is hold on to them if you have faith. We took some drawdowns on stocks like, LEU, ASTS towards the end of the year. And yeah, I mean, we're pretty much seeing the other end of holding that. So it's kind of funny. We took some heat from a few people. I mean, it was November and October were actually a few of our worst months ever. But for perspective, we had like a 90% annualized down October, an 80% annualized down November, but we also had 3 months over 100%. So it's a bit of a volatile growth strategy that we pursue. And yeah, I mean, you got to be prepared to hang in there. And I think certainly with LEU, that's been we held it. That's been a big start to our good year. But, sometimes it's just like starting fresh and, we got a little, and I mentioned we got a little defensive because, sometimes you want to protect your gains to end the year. And we started taking risks and we timed stocks like Zeta and AVAV, Bitfarm, really well. So yeah, I think that it's, always good lessons when you kind of observe, what we do with the portfolio, how we kind of analyze our own picks. But yeah, nice to see, a lot of our, faith in some of our growth names and, taking some, risks to start the year work well. One of the other things that I'm watching is, I saw this, and you never know how much it's like sensationalism these days. But, I know some people in our audience kind of have some more knowledge of military operations. So I wanted to put it out there. I saw that like 3 of our like nuclear doomsday planes were in the air Sunday, which apparently is something that rarely happens. I was analyzing it, and it's like, well, with kind of some of like, some of the stuff with Iran, some threats that they're making, it was kind of a show of force, like, because I believe the idea of those planes is that they're up there and can still not launch counterstrikes, even if the U.S. is decimated. Those planes are basically prepared to launch the revenge strikes. But yeah, just as another thing, I think that might be, in addition to Powell making the market a little jittery, could be a reason for the VIX. Wanted to make sure that people were aware of that as well, that cheery news.
So towards the end of there, I got a glitch and now your audio isn't matching the video. I wanted to check our chat. Is it the same for you guys? It was mostly good. It was at the pretty far towards the end of you talking.
Yeah, luckily I do not think we're going to be making that into a short. Is that still the case, or am I better now? I see it fine on my screen.
Yeah, it's actually looking better now for me too. JC saw the glitch. Yeah, but I think we're matched up again, so we should be good to go. John Connolly, we got a question while you were chatting about Meta, asking about wrong chat, a Meta call for January 27th, call spread, I believe.
I mean, we really don't. Oh, the sound is still a little off. We really don't give specific advice on options contracts. I mean, with something like Meta, I do think even, I think it's probably an earnings play. And, you don't really know what's going to happen if it's going to run before earnings. But that's the thing with these stocks that like have very good outlooks, like overall in the signals. Like, sometimes it can seem a little boring until the day that they have an announcement and it's up 10-15%. So I can't speak to that specifically, that options contract, but we do like Meta overall. If the sound is still an issue, I'm gonna try to maybe leave and come back, and then if it's still an issue, I'll restart my computer. 1 second.
All right, no problem. It looks good for me now, but it's an easy, reset. So we could try it. It'll George will be right back. Let's see. Do we got any other questions that I missed while we were chatting? No, I think we should be caught up here. Dakota said it's fine. Yeah, he'll be right back in like 10 seconds. So just a quick reset, and we'll continue on. I want to hear his thoughts on Jerome Powell and the video that Jerome Powell had some harsh words. Usually a soft-spoken individual, but not after he's getting accused.
Okay, are we better?
I think we are good to go. Looks good to me.
Yeah, I changed the mic input.
All right. I want to get your thoughts on the actual Jerome Powell headline, which it's amazing all of the stuff that's being thrown at the market, and then it just kind of continues higher. It's really incredible. But he's being investigated now federally for this building that was like, I think, $2.5 billion that the Fed built in a few years ago. And he responded to it in a pretty aggressive manner. I'd say he like went at it directly and had some harsh words, more so than he usually would. But you look at the markets today, it's like not really affecting anything. But what are your thoughts on that? It's just adding to the uncertainty of it all.
I mean, I saw that video and I didn't know if it was generative AI, because like it was a much sharper tone than he normally takes. But I mean, I think people take prosecution, like getting prosecuted, pretty, and like we've talked about it so much. Like Powell and Trump are clearly very annoyed with each other. And you always saw the undertones, but obviously it's getting into like overt aggressive actions here. And it's kind of hard because, I mean, I do believe the budget for that got approved during the first Trump administration. I could be wrong. So it's complicated with the market because while I think some people are concerned with the Fed being impartial, like Powell no longer being in charge is kind of a bull signal, because whoever got put in next would be like handpicked by Trump to basically cut interest rates a lot. So it's a bit of a complicated situation. But overall, well, I mean, John, I don't think you're really being like, I think Powell's going to serve his term, which he was elected to serve, right? Like, I don't like, he can't stay any longer than his term. So like, I don't really think spiteful is the right word. I think if you're a public servant and you take your job seriously and you were elected to do something, you were elected to serve a certain term. I think if you're a person of principles, you serve that term. So I don't think there's any I don't think there's any spite in it. I don't think Powell's trying to stay beyond what he was elected to do. So yeah, I mean, I don't really like. I think most elected officials, their default is going to be to serve the term that they were elected and sworn in to do. I don't see anything too weird about that just because somebody else wants you to quit. I mean, I don't know how many people out there like would agree with this, but I certainly wouldn't quit my job just because someone else wanted me to quit. So I don't like, I don't see any spite personally in someone. I don't think as I said, I don't think they like each other. But I also do not think, I don't think there's many circumstances in which, Powell seems to be a very serious person that takes his responsibility seriously. And I don't think he's someone who would leave his term early regardless.
I mean, however you feel about it, it's got to be adding to just the uncertainty of it all. We're in like unprecedented territory. And do you think this is the reason why gold just continues rallying even after it's had a great 2025? It's off to a good start in 2026, up like 7% already, up 2% today, hitting a $32 trillion market cap for gold, and bigger than the next. If you look at the top 10 list of like all the biggest stocks and assets in the world, including Nvidia, Google, all of them, Bitcoin, it's bigger than the next nine on the list combined. Like, do you think that's justified for gold to be that big? And is gold really just a measure of uncertainty at the moment? And as long as we keep getting bigger and badder headlines, seemingly more uncertain headlines, gold will just continue to rally no matter the valuation of it.
Yeah, I mean, I think some of it is I think some of it is that there is a lot of like I'd say different types of uncertainty in the market right now, but I mean the rest of that is just the same story that we've seen, which is that there's just a lot of like this market is very heavily momentum based, and so I think you have like a lot of like kind of momentum bots. You've got a lot of like you've got a lot of people pushing it on socials. So yeah, I mean, I think it's got the macro picture, and then you also have the elements of you also have a lot of the elements of that, like standard momentum play in this market that things can really catch, especially if there's a good like macro and or value reason to play it as well.
Mm-hmm. So the question I'm really interested in is like you look at all the value that Nvidia, Google, Apple, Microsoft, Amazon, all of the value they add to the world, and they're so much smaller than gold. Is there any value like thesis you can say for gold, or is it pure momentum at this point? Especially when it's just like it's a 10x of those almost in terms of its market cap.
I mean, the value thesis is kind of the same thing as we're talking about in the macro thesis, right? If you believe that, like, if you're overexposed long, right, and you don't have any shorts, and we talk about that, like gold, we like it much more. If you have a lot of longs and you're long only in your portfolio, it's a good additional long to have. It's an easy long that's not overcomplicated, that if there's a collapse in the market, you'll have support on. So I think it's from that perspective, there is value in the simplicity to protect your downside with a long, which is what most people like, which is the comfort level for a lot of people.
And in our newsletter yesterday, I was surprised to see a newsletter almost solely dedicated to crypto, even though we've been chatting about crypto more on the streams recently and how you're feeling better about it with the support it's getting from the administration. Is your confidence in the support for crypto at the level of like nuclear? Like, do you feel the same about them? And would Bitcoin play into this gold rally and gold thesis that we've been discussing on the stream already today?
No, I don't feel the same about it, because like how I feel about structural things. And like while the laws have cleared it up, like, and there's a reason to purchase more, like I don't quite have that same, like there's a difference between when we look at nuclear and the necessity of needing to power these data centers, the necessity of it perhaps as a national defense need, right? To me, that's very different than what we wrote about, which is basically like crypto isn't the same risk that it used to be, so it gives people a reason to get more exposure. There's a difference to have a reason to get more exposure and that be a lift, to like nuclear, where it's like a necessity, an inevitability, right? But we do like it, and we like it for momentum reasons, right? I do think that we kind of see these drawdowns in crypto and then rallies, right? And unless people's attitude towards crypto changes, which I don't think it is, I think we're in we saw the drawdown and we're about to see the rally. That's why we're talking about it more, because that's the pattern. Like the big mistake, the only mistake I think you can make with crypto is thinking that it's a fad and it's over, right? I think we've seen enough of these drawdown rally situations that it looks like, and and there's the crypto people have started to come out, and like, you have like one, I forget who he said, but like one of the big crypto people saying like, I think 180 by the end of the month, right? But Steven's moonlighting as an ICE agent.
You're blowing my cover, Mario. It's my mic.
But yeah, I think we're seeing what looks like, and if I just like looked at my watch list before this, a lot of crypto names. Like there, I scroll down, you see Cypher, like amongst my 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, like amongst my top 15 stocks, I'm seeing, MSTR, Bitfarm, Cypher Mining, Coinbase, Huts right there. So yeah, it's
Nick has a question for you around this. Since you talked about how Prospero wants to get into wealth management, does that mean you would include direct crypto positions as part of that, or would you stick more to equities?
No, I mean, I think by the time we have that kind of portfolio, we'll want to be diversified. But as we talked about in our letter, I'm not sure if that exposure would look like having like an ETF like Block, or it would be like a little more of our own like diversification. Like ETFs do have high expense ratios, and I think as an ETF, like we probably don't want to do that. So actually, I'd probably talk myself into having like we'd probably have a small diversified list of names. And yeah, I think Prospero as a wealth manager, as an ETF, looks a little differently. As an ETF, I think that we'd have a much larger pool of assets and have that kind of like concentration of maybe like 5, 6, 7 crypto names as our crypto exposure. But something like a wealth manager, like a traditional wealth manager, would probably be a little more similar to the high conviction portfolio for Prospero. And so, yeah, less names, things like that.
We almost got a pure 6-7 out of George on the stream today. So close. We got the 5 first. We got a lot of questions about BMNR, Path.
No, I think that was just listing other crypto names that were doing well today.
Well, one thing I do want to ask you is, like, I feel like in the newsletter, this is the first time I've seen us mention cryptos besides Bitcoin. So we mentioned Solana, XRP, and Ethereum. Is Bitcoin still clearly the number one you have confidence in, or are any of those leapfrogging into first?
I think I like XRP the most right now as an individual crypto. I think that it's got a lot of room to rebound. I think that it has a lot of potential in terms of some of like the stable coin stuff that's coming through the pipe. So yeah, if I had to own one right now, it would be XRP.
Interesting. They do seem to have a lot of connections to like the government and even governments around the world, seemingly. I think they're going for, what's that payment, the FAST system that like governments use to transfer money? I think they're trying to do that in the crypto world. So big opportunity, it seems like.
Exactly. That's that's why.
Well, a semi-related to crypto stock, Hood, I wanted to bring up on the stream today.
Oh, how about XRP? Can we talk about Path for a second? We got a question on Path. I don't. What does UiPath do? I mean, it looks pretty good. It's got a nice uptrend in net options, and although it opened it at 80 and now it's at 75. Downside's in not the best trend, but it looks okay. I mean, what's the market cap on it? I assume it's kind of like a smaller market cap, in which case these are good numbers.
Just under 10 billion market cap.
Yeah, I mean, that's decent numbers for a smaller cap. I mean, I'm not blown away by it. but like we say sometimes, if you already like it, it's certainly an interesting name. Hold on, I got to get my coffee. I'll be right back. Talk loud, Stephen, if you're asking me questions.
No worries. It's funny. George, people are making moves off your calls on the stream. Nick said, I am adding XRP now. That is the Prospero effect. You get the news first here. By the way, we've had a lot of people tuning in already, so be sure to like it if you've enjoyed the stream so far. I wanted to spin the conversation to Robinhood because I noticed that they have really not done much in terms of share appreciation for about 6 months now. They're trading at similar levels, and they were the story of the year, it seemed like, in 2025. But now that they've grown so much in terms of their market cap at just over 100 billion, you look at like the biggest financial companies in the world, most of them are, just a couple $100 billion of market cap. So they're not so far behind them at this point. Obviously, you have JP Morgan well out ahead of the rest with approaching $1 trillion market cap. But do you think the best days in terms of hood growth are behind it? And is it pricing in a lot of the growth now at this point with its market cap being so large, especially in an industry that, the leaders of it are just, 3, 4, 5 times exit mostly?
Yeah, I think sometimes a catalyst, John, you might want to take off your caps. It seems like you're very angry about all all of these stocks. Sometimes a catalyst materializing can be bad for a stock. Like, I actually feel like it finally getting added to the S&P 500. I think a lot of people were like, I got to own Robinhood because it's going to get added to the S&P 500, right? And it also, like, good earnings are amplified because you're like, oh, it's going up this much. It's going up this much. And then, it's going to go up that much more when it gets added. So I think that's what we're seeing. We're kind of seeing, I think, an S&P 500. We're kind of seeing an S&P 500 hangover, in my opinion. And I mean, all that means is I think we're going to see some, tepid results. 81 net option sentiment, that's pretty low for Robinhood. It tends to run high until there's, is there going to be another great earnings? Is there going to be another big announcement? And I do think when everybody thinks about Robinhood, I think they're thinking about Robinhood as a wealth manager. I think it's kind of similar, like very similar of like the very, like, I'd say like rabid shareholder groups. I think Robinhood, I think when like a lot of like Tesla is thinking of, the humanoid robots, right? I think a lot of the hood stands are waiting for the wealth management announcement, waiting for, and it would probably be an announcement where they could start forecasting that. I think that's the thinking. So, that like, I think that's ultimately like, if you think revenue, or at least an announcement or a mobilization into wealth management is on the horizon for Robinhood, it's a great stock to own. Personally, I don't think that's imminent enough that I like to own it.
Well, there was another headline that came out today about the financial sector from Trump, where he was calling for credit card rates to be capped at 10% for 1 year, starting soon, January 20th. Do you think there's any possibility this happens? It did make immediate share price repercussions for Capital One. They were down 10% this morning after this came out. Any kind of likelihood you could put on this? And would it just, we've been saying a lot, but add to the uncertainty of the financial space and maybe be a drag on a lot of those companies because you don't know what headline or, piece of legislation could come next?
Yeah. I mean, I think that's a big risk, right? One of the reasons why we have stayed pretty even long short. at the beginning of this year, there are like a lot of announcements. Like, I don't know, like, I don't know how much the Trump administration is like, this is our year one plan, this is our year two plan, blah, blah. But it does seem like a lot of this stuff is coming fast and furious in the new year. So I think you'd be silly. We see SPY, net option sentiment, staying around 1-0, right? I think that's a manifestation of the way that people are feeling about the risk. Political change, policy change is volatility, right? Especially in a government that is, really pushing the envelope on what presidential powers are. So, you really have to be prepared for things like that, the upside and the downside. And I would say the more probable, like with Trump, there's always smoke and then fire, right? And I think, part of that is the world that we live in where, trial balloons get floated before someone does something. A lot of the times, they want to know exactly how the public's going to respond to it. So, I think that credit, banking, a lot of these things are risky right now, both ways, right? I wouldn't short any of these, banking, real estate, we kind of like on a sector level. And we've actually meaning to add a long-term one for the reasons that we've talked about. I wonder how real estate stocks are doing today. We'll check when we do the model portfolio. But yeah, there's a lot of, I would say, especially until these, new military initiatives and these and these kind of fast and furious, policy announcements, until they slow down, I think you have to be very, very cautious because you never know how it's going to affect things.
John did make an interesting point. Maybe it's just like a thing they can, promote heading into the midterm year and all this, similar to Biden with student loans. But also, I have a question for you regarding this. In the 2008 and the real estate collapse and banking collapse, it was from things that were removed that were supposed to protect the system. And I believe debt levels are at all-time highs right now currently. And if there was a scenario where this were to go through and people were able to add even more debt, and then one day it got reversed, would that be setting up for a type of similar situation where, leading to a real collapse or black swan type of event in the scenario that this were to actually go through while we're at all-time high debt levels?
Yeah, I mean, it's one of those things with the debt stuff that it's very hard to really odds make, because we've been at all-time debt levels for a while and it hasn't seemed to move, it hasn't seemed to move the needle. I will say that I think unless there was some broader, where I land on this stuff, and I've had times where I'm as it's been ramping up, been concerned. But I think where I ultimately land on this is whether it's the Democrats or the Republicans, unless there is, especially in a midterm year, unless there is just extreme pressure on the government, we're in a real bad situation. And even then, I'd probably bet on it. I think we are everybody, we talk about this all the time. Everybody's oh, we'll never be socialist, blah, blah, blah. But what happened during COVID? People got direct payments. That's as socialist as it gets, right? And that was the Trump administration, who's kind of the most critical. I don't think the Democrats really I think there's an element of the Democrats that would like more socialism, but I think you see the centrist Democrats maybe spend more against their own party to make sure those people aren't being look at what happened with Mamdani in New York, right? A lot of that funding was Democrats. So yeah, I think that's what's very hard to odds make these things, because you could have the position where it's like, yes, at these debt levels, someone's going to have to pay the piper eventually, and that's going to like hurt consumer spending. But ultimately, I think who pays the piper might be the government. Like if it's like almost you have to look at it like the bigger the problem it is and the more that it might affect consumer spending, it's kind of like what happened with COVID, that we kind of know at this stage of capitalism that the government will step in. So it's very hard to be like, oh, it's going to have this effect when we do now have, a lot of government intervention on these kinds of things, whether it be for the banks or for the people. We see it for both.
We did get some questions in the comments before you entered the stream today about Netflix earnings next week and choppy trading recently. I saw there's some back and forth on whether they'll actually be able to acquire Warner Bros. I think Paramount just sued. I think Paramount's offer was higher in total value, but like you said, actually, when we were covering it, Warner Bros. Positioned as if the shares of Netflix will provide more value in the long term. So interesting how that played out. But any thoughts on Netflix at this point? I think it was Nick who was asking.
On what did he ask? Sorry.
Just about Netflix heading into earnings next week.
Yeah, I mean that's tough, right? Especially because there was a big rally on that announcement, right? So even if they have good earnings, if they basically pour cold water on on that acquisition going through, that might not be the best, might not be the best earnings. So you've like people that have watched me for a long time know that like any event driven stuff, I don't really like to touch. Like what would have been nice is Netflix did look pretty good in our signals, owning it before the announcement and taking a little profit on that announcement. That would have been a nice way to play it. But right now, I think it's tough. I actually look, Netflix is looking very good in momentum score today. So it does look like some people are playing earnings, but it's always hard to tell. Like I think earnings and Prospero signals are, it's very hard to tell the difference between like, hey, someone might know something and they're betting on earnings, or B, they're just betting on the idea that Netflix tends to have good earnings. And, when banks do that and when people do that, it's very different, right? Because basically you can bet on Netflix having good earnings as a bank, as a hedge fund, and then know you're going to get good execution if like you're basically reading the press releases and act like you might actually be able to get out like without a loss, even after they've like missed on earnings, right? So it's a very different animal for these institutions to just play, say Netflix is a 60% chance. But we should do like, I kind of do want to do our, because I don't think we've done it with Netflix. I want to do our typical Perplexity whisper number question. Because I always love looking at this. But I would bet the game theory numbers on Netflix are positive. We'll see how close my 60% win rate is. It might be higher, but always good. Actually, if anybody's ever read the book Super Forecasters, you probably observed that I'm pretty good at predicting things. But that's not an accident. I actually, when I read that book, I was like, oh, that's interesting. So apparently the best way to become good at predicting things is making predictions and seeing the answer, right? And if you make a prediction and there's a way to assess if you were right or wrong, your brain is actually doing the work of figuring out like what you were right and wrong about and actually getting better at predicting things if you frequently predict things and then see. And like I have a long history of doing that. Even as a kid, I like made me and my sisters play this game where we would pass this temperature thing. Like whenever we would pass, we would like go to camp in like Massachusetts and we'd pass this temperature thing every day. And we'd have to like guess the temperature before and see who was right. So yeah, I guess I had that inclination for a long time. But if you want to get better at predicting things, that's the way you do it. You try to, you got to try guess a number or guess something that can have a right or wrong answer. And then, all you have to do is think about, see the answer, think about, analyze a little bit why you were right or wrong, and your brain does the rest of the work.
Mm-hmm. Fascinating. It's just like practice makes perfect, right? Just like with anything else, the more hours you put in and get better at it, the better you'll become.
Yeah. Dan Kahneman in this book, Thinking Fast and Slow, postulated that it takes 10,000 hours to become an expert at something. Oh, yeah, I've moved on from guessing the weather. But actually, where my parents live in Massachusetts now, it used to be their second home. But that temperature thing is still there, and we do still play the temperature game when we pass that bank in the town of Great Barrington, Massachusetts.
I don't know, JC and George. The weather people don't seem to be right too often. I would bet money that you could be better, even if you're a little rusty.
It can be hard. It's surprisingly hard to just feel temperature and guess it.
Mm-hmm. I don't know if Perplexity. I think we'll give it one more minute because we have a question about a Discord IPO. Shouldn't be too long of a topic. Nick also asked about this. Okay, so we'll go back into Netflix first.
Oh, damn. Yeah, see, it is higher. I was way off. So 7 out of 8 of their last earnings have been beats. But I wouldn't play options. It's pretty interesting because there's an implied move of 7.38. That's pretty high. But yeah, it does say that there is risk associated with the Warner Brothers acquisition.
Can you share the prompt? We just got a question in the chat about that.
Yeah, I actually made the prompt a long time ago. I'll just share this. You can look at my whole history of asking about this. What is the whisper number that Palantir needs to have on earnings to go up in your estimation? What are the probabilities of stock increase for Palantir following earnings? We did this way back in the day with Palantir, but yeah, take the whole thread.
So there you go. Real Burke Coochie. It's in the chat for you, the link right to it, so you could click on that and go there. Kevin's in the chat as well. Good morning to you, Kevin. Welcome to the stream today. We got a question about, you're welcome. We got a question about the Discord IPO. I'm wondering, is this going to get overshadowed with the IPO of the decade in SpaceX later this year? But any thoughts on Discord and them as a business company stock? It seems like if you're a company today, you need a Discord. So I don't know. How essential do you think they are? How do you feel about their business?
I think it's a great product. We obviously have a Discord. And I think you gotta play, and we should this year. I know we've told people, tell us the timing on this, because I want to play both. I feel like, yes, we've seen the IPO market soften a little bit, but I think when you're dealing with brands that retail investors know, I think those IPOs always seem to go well these days. So yeah, I'd want to play that.
Someone was asking for a reading list recommendations in Discord from you. I think that's a good idea. Like your top 10 books for people. Oh, is there one already there?
I think there's I think there's some, but yeah, I can throw some more in there. There's in Discord, I believe there's let's see, it might be, yeah, there's a reading list thing. I've given some books in there, my top 3. And then I go on to some other ones, some philosophy books that I like.
Reading is something, I don't know, I just cannot get into it. I don't know if it's my TikTokified brain. I know it's so important, and I want to read more, but it's just, I feel like I've been ruined with social media in terms of the ability to sit down and read a book. I don't know how any of our viewers feel. It's a tough medium for me to get into. I think podcasts for me, I don't know if anybody watching the stream feels the same way, but when I'm trying to get information, it seems like podcasts is like the route I go, and I just can't get into books. It's as much as I try. It's unfortunate. Maybe I'll make a commitment to read George's top three in 2026. We'll see. I don't want to make a promise I can't keep though.
I'm sure you could just ask Perplexity to summarize the key lessons for you.
See, that's the problem. That's why I
Like,
can't
but
read a full book.
these days you could just have Perplexity like summarize it, throw it in like a text reader, and you could like basically make your own podcast.
Yeah, it's wild where we've come. A few more stocks I want to bring up before we end the stream or turn it over to the model portfolio. Tempest AI, ticker TEM, pre-announced earnings. So I want to get your thoughts on just that strategy of a company pre-announcing. Usually I feel like it's either if like the earnings are like overwhelmingly bullish or bearish. This one, they were bullish, stock reaction. So they beat their earnings estimate. Not too much though, 367 million versus 360 million estimate. What was an interesting data point, I thought at least, that they shared is that they're having revenue retention around 126%. So I believe, if I'm not mistaken, that means like existing customers are not only staying with them, but upping their spend like year over year or quarter over quarter. So I imagine that's a very bullish piece of data to share with the market. So how do you feel? Any thoughts on Tempest and the strategy when you see a company pre-announcing? Do you think that's a good one?
Yeah, I mean, I think it's a good idea. I mean, I almost added Tempest last week, and I should have, because it's really been on fire. It looked really good in the signals. We saw it, like it's in the trading portfolio because it looked very good in momentum score. Probably should have added it. I mean, they're in a great space, and they seem to have like a lot of the right connections and partnerships. So yeah, I'm really bullish on Tempest, and yeah, I think making an announcement early is smart, especially if you're smart enough to still underplay the announcement, right? Because you don't want to steal your earnings move. But if you're just like, we can actually move up this forecast, 10% here and then another 10% on the earnings report, that's very smart to do, right? Because the problem with like a huge beat is sometimes you can, we talk about this all the time. Sometimes you can go up like 20 or 30% and then have a sell-off the next day. Whereas like if you stagger it and it's like a 10% and then like a 10% on earnings, you're much less likely to have people be like, oh, I got to take profits, right? Because, it's just psychology. Like you have a 10% day on a stock, like you'd probably consider taking profits. You have a 30% day on a stock, like you'd be stupid not to take some profits.
And JC saying NRR over 100 for software is excellent. We've discussed how AI the next big opportunity could be in physical hardware coming soon. Tempest's thing is AI in the healthcare field, and I feel like we're not seeing a ton of headlines from like the major companies like Eli Lilly's, AbbVie, Johnson & Johnson's, like the mega caps of the bunch, using AI for like new discoveries, new products. Do you think that's another avenue that pretty soon AI is going to be making waves in, where we're going to be seeing these pharma companies with big headlines?
So my last company, I did AI as a service, primarily for financial institutions. But I pitched it around. We had some general purpose technology that now, powers Prospero today. And one of the interesting things and most horrifying things that I experienced was actually with a drug company, because I actually thought it was like, this was maybe close to 10 years ago. I thought it was a pretty interesting application, exactly what you're saying. Basically, taking successful molecules and like exploring around them. Oh, you're frozen. Am I frozen or are you frozen, Steven?
Hello, can you hear me? I see both of us.
Yeah, I didn't know if you or I were frozen. Maybe someone, but I'll, if I'm better now, I can kind of restart my story. So anyway, I was talking to this guy that was at a drug, doing drug discovery. And I was basically like, well, you could use AI to experiment with molecules that have worked previously and cut your time. And he was just basically like, well, that sounds like a good idea. Like, we have this kind of like throw shit against the wall and see what sticks situation, because apparently the way the funding works is that you basically get money from the government to run experiments. So all like trials, even trials that fail, are profitable for these drug companies. So they want to run as many trials as possible. They don't necessarily want to be more efficient. I don't know how much that's changed, but that's probably still an obstacle. It was a very horrifying thing that I learned about the way these things are funded.
So it sounds like you wouldn't expect major headlines or stuff to come out in the near
No,
future.
but I mean, I think that's why I emphasize with Tempest that their partnerships connections are very important, right? Because you need
Mhm.
the right buy-in to work in healthcare AI. It's like I'd say it's actually more about connections than technology. And we know Nancy Pelosi likes
Mhm.
Tempest AI. So there you go. That she probably knows about the necessary select.
JC saying the landscape very different today in pharma. They are more open to AI in preclinical work. So it sounds like also to me that the legacy and the giant companies in the pharma industry are not going to be the ones. It's going to be upstarts and companies like Tempest that kind of need a breakthrough to be the one to like make that discovery in the first place. They're going to be the ones looking.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, I think they're the right bet.
Mm-hmm. Well, I think it is time to do the switch over to the model portfolio. I do have some cliffhanger topics that I'm going to make you guys wait for till Wednesday, so you'll all have to tune back in Wednesday, 3 p.m. We're going to be talking about Apple and Grab stock then. So everybody's going to have to come back Wednesday, but George will catch you on the other side, do the model portfolio update. Great stream so far today, everybody. Hope you have enjoyed it. All of the topics here. If it's your first time here, what we're going to do now is the model portfolio. So we'll make live adds and drops to the portfolio that is outperforming. It is early, but over 1,000% so far this year. Drop a like if you haven't yet. We got to hit 20 likes on YouTube and a lot of likes on Twitter as well. Let's take a look at the markets. What have they been doing since we've been chatting here for about an hour? It looks like okay, we've seen some bullish momentum. We're seeing the QQQ, SPY, and Russell all in the green now. Yeah. Oh, yeah. JC, don't ruin it. I'm on episode 4. I'm not all the way caught up, but yeah, they're the masters of it, right? You gotta leave. You gotta leave for the audience something to come back for. Yeah, but I'm on episode 4 of Stranger Things here. NW, thanks for being so bringing so much energy in the chat today. You and I also saw John also left earlier, but thank you guys. The chat was popping. All right, so where did I leave off? Russell SPY, QQQ in the green. Dow is still slightly red, but everything is trending in the upward direction at the moment. Let's check the Prospero app for the SPY and QQQ NOS at this very moment. SPY is still at 0 and QQQ is at 22. And I think if there's one takeaway from a lot of the discussion, especially in the earlier part of our stream today, it's just that volatility and uncertainty will persist. And if that is the case, SPY and QQQ net option sentiment will probably remain low as people are hedging, even though other stocks, individual stocks, and even the indices might be able to melt higher amidst it all, amidst all the chaos, still climbing. Let's go through the Prospero short-term bull list of 10 stocks. So this is the landing page when you open the app that you are initially brought into. We are right now seeing Costco, Google, Intel, Meta, Amazon, United Healthcare, Robinhood, Tempest AI, and Netflix. Ooh, and Appfolio. That's a new one. Wow, interesting. A lot of the stocks we were chatting about today are actually on there. Hood, Tempest, and Netflix. Interesting. We got to check out Appfolio, ticker APPF. I've never seen this one on the short-term bull list. I've never even heard of this company. I'm always interested when something like that pops up on the radar from the Prospero app. So we'll have to bring that one to George's attention. It's currently has an 87 net option sentiment level, 80 net social, upside 61, downside 33. Let me look at what this company does. AppFolio provides industry-specific cloud-based business software solutions. Data analytics to the real estate industry. George was saying he wants a real estate stock possibly. What better one than one that's basically the tech side of things? I wonder if he'll like this company. Market cap 8 billion. All right, let's take a look at individual movers here today. We'll see how Bitcoin's doing in some of the Mag 7 stocks. All right, let's take a look. Apple up, Amazon up, Google up, Meta in the red, Microsoft green, Tesla green. None of them are really moving too big today. Let's check out NVIDIA too. NVIDIA is currently in the green. Yeah, everything is kind of just at a snail's pace at the moment in terms of the mega caps. I'm sure it'll heat up later this month when we get some earnings. Oh, I forgot to look at Bitcoin too. Bitcoin. Bitcoin is up 0.11% on the day, so not much of movement there either. George, I wanted to bring up this company because it's on the short-term bull list in Prospero, ticker APPF, AppFolio. It's involved with the real estate industry, and I know you said you might want to add one, so interesting.
Add a short.
Oh, okay.
I'll be right back.
Never mind then. NBIS is a good mover, says JC, up 8%. NBIS and SNDK are stocks that I've just been watching and been amazed by the rallies that they have been able to have. But yes, it looks like NBIS up 8%, already 20% year to date for NBIS. SNDK up 45% year to date.
Oh, I was like, today, like I would have been annoyed at myself because I thought about adding it.
We got a question in the chat about Zeta and LEU. If they haven't added them already, do you think they're still good entries?
I feel better about I feel better about LEU than Zeta. I've been thinking about dropping it. Okay, QQQ, SPY, and option sentiment.
QQQ is at 23 and SPY 0.
Pretty much exactly where it was Friday. I have it open somewhere. Whatever. It's a lot of blue. Oh, damn. I forgot. I got to check something. We might be wasting our time here. Momentum score was not producing a full set of results this morning when I checked. So how many now? Oh, no, we're good.
Ticker in the chat, CRWV CoreWeave. Any thoughts on them?
I always have my eye on CoreWeave. Whoa. Okay. $100 net option sentiment on CoreWeave.
Whoa.
Okay, so this is an interesting level. Last time it got rejected at 91.22. And then it kind of got rejected at 87.31. So we're already past that. Yeah. It looks like that's a good level to watch. But I don't know, might be time to add it. I'll look to rebalance a little this afternoon. Oh, can you check these four, Stephen? Do you see them?
Yeah, I'll check them.
I'm definitely still in the phase of this year where it feels weird to see 2026.
Mm-hmm. Especially when it feels like last year was 2019.
Especially because of that.
All right, you want the NOSs for them?
Yep.
Okay, starting from the top, so F1 38, CLFD 29, ASRT 17, BLRX 42.
We'll keep all of them. Oh, we never did this.
Financials looks like the right bear target, and we will look for exposure on consumer defensive bulls.
Damn, I think.
Question in the chat: are most people here actually buying stocks, or are you doing futures? Oh, I guess that's more for our other viewers of the stream.
Mm.
The market looks more bullish on QQQ than SPY, but is not moving in a decisive direction.
See, Zeta's looking a little soft. I think I'm going to substitute CoreWeave for Zeta. I just feel better about that. Actually, I'm going to look at MBIS too and see if that looks better than CoreWeave. No, CoreWeave looks better. Oh, that looks great. Okay. Oh no. Oops. I sent it out as 112.25, even after saying that. All right, so we are going to switch in CoreWeave for Zeta. and ANET for Datadog. Just a few little switches. Okay, and we're done. Unless anybody has any questions.
The chat was talking about, we had a question about how would you suggest someone get into shorting if they're new to investing? There was a bit of back and forth going on.
Yeah, so I mean, what I would always recommend is one of two things. Either just, short one share of stock, like, or a fractional share, like get used to the mechanics of it, or do paper trading, right? Just, what you want to get a feel for is like the ratio, the risk levels of, like, on a green day, what a certain ratio of shorts to longs are going to be, and, like, some of the costs associated. So yeah, like, that's how I would recommend getting your feet wet. But also, like, I would recommend, leveraging our Discord. Like, there's a lot of people similarly, as you're doing it, you can say, like, hey, I'm doing this, like, I'm looking at this short, like, and the community is, kind of great for getting feedback on that.
Yeah, some great advice there. A great stream today, a lot of energy in the chat, a lot of viewers. So thank you guys for tuning in today. Thank you, George. We had great discussions throughout it. We'll be back Wednesday, 3 p.m. for everybody. So tune back in then. Have a good couple days, everyone, and we will see you soon. Bye, everybody. Bye, George.
Bye.